Hiya, it's Heidi. I'm back. We are all fine, flawed, insecure, nervous and emotional. I am a counsellor, psychotherapist, specialising in working with young people and young adults, hopefully like the ones listening here. I can't begin to tell you how grateful I am for everybody who's reached out, contacted me, rated the show, subscribed somewhere along the lines. I'm still winging this and I'm hoping it's becoming a little bit more professional as the weeks go on. I'm just so used to being with that one person in my room, and now I'm just sitting here with a mic in front of me and some notes, and it all feels very surreal. Thank you for welcoming me into a world I have got no idea about, but where I really want to be. And as I'm just writing my podcast week by week, and I've started to come onto TikTok and all those horrible places that I was always petrified of. But all of that aside, this experience of coming out into social media and creating something of my own has been so scary but brilliant all at the same time. So I'm really grateful that you're giving me this opportunity to share a little bit more about what I know. Leading on then from last week, where we talked about low mood, whether it's physical or mental, and the difference between low mood and depression, I wanted to create a podcast for you. I've called it Functioning, Not Feeling. Have you ever felt like you're going through life feeling completely numb and empty? So you'll be drifting from day to day, week to week, not really stopping to focus on what you're doing, or maybe on what you're feeling and why. If this sounds like you, you are not alone. I hear this so many times as a therapist when I work with young people who find themselves doing just this, functioning, not feeling. Of all the different emotions a person can have, I think feeling empty is one of the most uncomfortable. Think about this. Feeling empty is like feeling incomplete, like something is missing or something's absent inside of you, set apart, alone, lacking, numb, horrible, horrible words. And, you know, we all have days like that when we feel more or less engaged with life or more or less excited about the future. But if you are finding yourself feeling like you are functioning and not feeling lots and lots of times, day after day, weeks on end, and it's beginning to affect your life, think about relationships, this podcast is going to be helpful for you to hear. I'm going to be talking to you today about a psychological phenomenon that I know as an emotional numbness, or you might have seen it described as feeling emotionally numb or blunt. But in general, what I tend to hear is people describe this feeling of being empty or dead inside and not really caring about anything, even the things you used to think a lot about, the things that would once make you smile or bring you joy. When I've experienced this, I've always been able to associate this experience with a difficult time in my life. I don't just suddenly wake up one morning and feel empty and numb and dead inside. It's never worked that way. It's always linked to a challenge or a trauma or something that's been, you know, really hard for me to live with. So why is it happening to you? It's something our mind does to help us cope when we're flooded with those big emotions. When you've experienced stress, anxiety, trauma, or anything like that, your brain will subconsciously try and protect you. So what it does is it blocks out those hard feelings, making it really hard for you to feel anything at all. If your brain did not do this, you are going to be at risk of being in danger of swamping that system of yours with all of those difficult feelings and emotions. Think of it then as a protective response to feeling difficult feelings and emotions, a protective layer. Remember when we talked about the responses our bodies take when we were in that phase of anxiety? Remember we did flight, freeze, fight or fawn. That's a mouthful. I say that every day. This is your body freezing, so you're emotionally numb. Have you ever drove somewhere and couldn't remember getting there? Okay, so 1 minute you're in the car, the next you're at uni, college, work, whatever, the drive-through, wherever you're going. You just simply zone out, don't you? You know, in fact, if you've ever zoned out, okay, lost track of time maybe, I do that when I read, or daydreamed, you know, just zoned out, those are examples of emotional numbness. You've just numbed out. You just do it. It's a result of our minds disconnecting, which makes sense, from our thoughts, actions, and our sense of self and all the sensory experiences of the world around you. Daydreaming is a classic example of this. When something upsetting happens, it's really normal for a healthy person like you or I to feel angry or sad. Now, these feelings will affect mood, behaviour, and physical body, all normal. Emotional numbness, however, could mean you don't feel those feelings of being angry, sad, and you might not even get to the opposite side of that and feel happy. Your mood may not change, your behaviours will feel empty, and you just might feel disconnected from your body. Because all of us are unique, our emotions are going to manifest in different ways. And the same is true for emotional numbness. It's really common, but in isolated episodes, harmless, okay? But if you're finding this happening more and more, it's going to be helpful now for you to have a look at what's going on in your world and why. Initially, emotionally numbing is helpful, okay? Because it helps calm down our overwhelmed minds. Brilliant. But over time, it can be harmful and it will lead to behaviours with serious consequences to your emotional and physical well-being. It'll make it really tough for you to connect to others and handle situations in a healthy way if you're disconnecting from your own emotional responses. I feel nothing. What's wrong with me? Wow, a heavy statement and a heavy question that I hear many, many times from people in my counselling room. These words are often accompanied by some of these that I'll just explain about now. So first of all, what's wrong with me? You thinking that you've got the problem. If you've got a limited emotional response to events or experiences that would normally bring up a feeling inside of us, think of this as a dampened sense of excitement. That's going to be an experience of you feeling emotionally numb. Again, a reduced ability to respond to emotions in others. Now, if you're normally quite an empathic person like myself, and then you just can't reach for that empathy, you're going to start feeling some level of shame or guilt about not having those emotions, i.e., what's wrong with me? Why am I not sad? Why am I not crying at this? Why am I not laughing my head off? If you are asking yourself these questions as well, though you're probably going to be some level of disconnection from your body, as if you're in a bit of an autopilot. Think of it like that, really. You'll probably find yourself being quite forgetful. You'll have difficulty focusing and difficulty talking about the emotions, because if you can't feel them, you can't articulate them. So again, it's back to that, oh my gosh, I feel nothing, what's wrong with me? Definitely a level of hopelessness. Isolating yourself away from other people, not doing the things that you've once enjoyed doing. And when you start all of these types of emotions or lack of emotions, they're going to bring a lot of questioning into your head. You're going to start possibly then engaging in more risky behaviours, thinking self-harm, substances. You maybe start drinking, taking drugs, for example. You're just trying to avoid those difficult feelings. So if I'm not feeling anything and I don't know why I'm not going to feel anything, and I'm questioning that, the drugs, the self-harm, instantly going to be switching your attention and your focus away from what you're not doing. Got lots to say about self-harm, but we'll come to that in a different podcast. For me, when I've experienced emotional numbness, I can make days feel like they're blooming altogether. I can't tell a day apart. It's all just that sameness, isn't it? And I get that horrible sense of losing time. Please do not be diagnosing yourself here, because I'm not diagnosing you either. There is no definitive test to determine if you're suffering with emotional numbness. And some of these experiences that I've just chatted about, a few moments ago, will not be associated with that. But use this podcast to think about how long you might have been feeling like this. And then if you can, try and work out why it might be happening for you. I'm just thinking now it might be a good idea for me just to briefly tell you what the difference is between emotional numbness and depression. So we did talk about depression last week, just a little bit to add to that then. Depression is a mental health condition, and emotional numbness might be a sign or a symptom of several different mental health challenges. Think of that as the difference. Although emotional numbness, it's not a condition within itself, it's a sign that something isn't right. And that could mean there is a mental health condition affecting the quality of your life, or it could mean that something is overwhelming you in your life circumstances. Either way, you will find seeking the right support is going to benefit your awareness. And that's what I'm trying to do with all of my podcasts and all of my TikToks and everything else that's spread across social media. I'm trying to raise your self-awareness to give you more control of what it is that might be going on for you. I am a young person's counsellor. I strongly believe that giving you the knowledge and the awareness is going to be such a big help for any process of healing and recovery. I've actually just spent the weekend with my best friend, and we were talking about, do we ever fully heal, or do we ever fully recover from the traumas we've both experienced, which are both very different. Neither of us can say, we've fully recovered and we're healed and we've got over it, whatever that might be. But we heal, and we're in a process of healing. And some of the things that would have hurt us and will continue to hurt us might just lose their sting a little bit over time. So I will tell you what I tell my clients. If something is feeling off, it probably is. Trust yourself. You will always know yourself better than anyone else. So trust your instincts with your mental health. Emotional numbness is going to be caused by dozens of different reasons. All right, there's so many different, a variety of things that can tip into you presenting this way. But I've created this podcast, so I want to share 6 examples. I thought that would be helpful. I guess the most common one I come across is trauma. Traumatic experiences. I'm thinking physical or emotional abuse, personal loss, violence, any kind of catastrophic event, past trauma. That's absolutely going to be a common cause of emotional numbing. Trauma, it disrupts your emotional and psychological equilibrium, so to speak, leaving you disconnected from your own emotions and the world around you. When you have experienced something really traumatic for yourself, whether it's a big T trauma or a little T trauma, and each one of us out there will have a different observation about that, it's not unusual for the memories of that event to haunt you. You might have had experience of flashbacks, intense memories that can make you feel like you're reliving what's happened. Obviously, these flashbacks are going to be associated, I'd say, with PTSD, so that's post-traumatic stress disorder. Sometimes people with PTSD will stop feeling emotions as strongly as they battle with flashbacks of their experiences. Your brain is only going to try and save you, and this is its attempt to protect you from being too overwhelmed and distressed, so it'll just knock off the emotions. The second point I thought I'd share is how going through prolonged stress for a long period of time will leave you feeling, or could leave you feeling, emotionally numb. Stress is a natural response to challenges or threats. We can't stop that, and it causes mental and physical tension. Now, I describe this as an elastic band that can be stretched and stretched, but only so far before it snaps and it breaks. When the stress hormones such as the cortisol flood your body, all sorts of reactions can occur, and some of these are going to leave you feeling emotionally numb. That extreme stress, chronic long-term stress, can also cause physical and emotional fatigue and burnout, which will definitely lead to some level of numbness. The third thing which will cause it, in my opinion, is chronic mental health issues. The two that spring to mind here for me straight away is severe depression and high levels of anxiety. Depressive episodes might lead to disconnection from your feeling and, a dulling of emotions because you are depressed. So when the mood becomes so low, the emotions of people with depression will become flat. And here comes the empty and hopeless feeling. When we feel anxiety, we literally can't think straight. Your brain's going to go into shutdown mode, and there you'll numb out right now. It's a tough one, right? Because if we can see there's a link between stress and anxiety, and between stress and depression, and the combination of these results in numbness, how on earth do you go about trying to unravel all of that? Another reason emotional numbness could happen to you, it's going to be caused by certain types of medication. So if you're on something like an antidepressant or an SSRI of some sort for treating anxiety and depression, these medications can affect the way our brain processes mood and emotion. A difficult place for you to be if you are taking them to help with the numbness, however, because, they could also contribute to you feeling like your emotional gearbox is in neutral, because they're going to level you out. If you think any medication you're taking might be a contributory factor to causing your emotional numbness, you can work with your doctor to find different alternatives. Finally, and possibly not one of the most obvious causes, I think, for emotional numbness is substance misuse. There is a lot of research to suggest that feeling disconnected from your feelings and substance misuse can be linked. They are connected in two ways. On one hand, emotional numbness can lead a person to use more substances, almost to fill up the void. But on the other hand, substance misuse can lead to a person's emotional numbness. Drink, drugs, marijuana, opioids, any kind of pain meds, or any kind of stimulant here is going to lead you possibly to numb out, to become emotionally numb. All these substances kill brain cells and will cause behavioural issues. If it's not too late, the effects can be reversible. So to treat, if this is what's happening for you, to treat that emotional numbness, I would say you need to recover from the substance abuse first. What I'm aiming to do by creating the content for my podcast and coming out onto social media is to give you a place or give you some words or some encouragement where you can start to normalise and validate your feelings. That is so important. Today, in episode 4, we've talked about emotional numbness. So let's turn our attention now to how you can deal with functioning and not feeling and get you feeling something again. The journey to managing and overcoming emotional numbness begins with acknowledging it's there. Okay, it's in my world, it's present, and I need to understand why. It's essential to recognise that this detachment from your feeling is not a sign of weakness nor any kind of personal failing, rather a natural response to extreme stress and emotional pressure. Accepting this has to be the first step towards you reclaiming your emotional life. No matter the cause, emotional numbness isn't permanent. It may go away on its own. It's certainly done with that in the past with me, or you may need to take some steps to help relieve some of its symptoms. How can we unnumb ourselves if our brain is in safe mode? Okay, whether the emotional numbness has come from past trauma, stress, PTSD, substances, which we've talked about, any mental health issue, therapy can help you identify and challenge the negative thought patterns that perpetuate that emotional numbness. By learning to reframe those thoughts, you can gradually re-engage with your emotions in a controlled and safe manner. You might want to look into a therapy called CBT, so that's cognitive behavioural therapy. This model of therapy will allow you to understand the link between your thoughts, your feelings, and the way you behave, and the result of that sequence. PTSD, let me just say this, will require a more specific type of therapy. So reach out to your GP for guidance on this. EMDR and CBT are recommended for such traumas like PTSD or complex PTSD. Don't diagnose yourself with the help of Dr. Google. Please don't. Yes, there's some great stuff out there, but you may just completely take yourself off down a rabbit hole. Mindfulness is such a powerful tool that will really allow you the opportunity to combat that emotional numbing by helping you become more aware of your thoughts and feelings in the here and now. Essentially, mindfulness can help you wake up from a state of numbness by bringing forward your focused attention to your internal experiences without any judgment or criticism. So sitting with the uncomfortable feeling is horrible and can feel terrifying, but you're going to hear me say this a lot. You have to learn being comfortable with the uncomfortable, and mindfulness is a great technique. Mindfulness techniques such as meditation and deep breathing will all help you become more aligned with your physical sensations and any emotional shifts that you're experiencing inside. Noticing when you are numb will be really helpful when nurturing your emotional self back to life. I appreciate you may find the thought of being still with your emotions hard, and that is fine, really normal. If you can't access therapy, or simply, like many, you don't want to, preferring to tackle this on your own, I'm going to share some techniques that I think might help with that numb and empty feeling. Take a look at your life and be willing to be brutally honest about how you feel and about what is happening to you. So how do you feel about yourself, and what may have led you to zoning out of your feelings? You'll definitely have to do some exploring internally to allow yourself to begin feeling the negativity you may not have been allowing yourself to process up until now. Be kind, be gentle with yourself, and honour whatever comes up. Small steps here, and acknowledging that courage that you have is going to help you. I am gently trying to coax you out of your comfort zone, and it's so scary out there, isn't it? Factor that into your process. You are going to feel frightened, but try sitting with that fear and accepting it. If you have got this far, you are keen to address the numbness, and this has to be part of your process. Some clients I've worked with over the years get benefit from keeping a written journal of this process. Or if you do prefer, you could video this on your phone instead. So take the time to look back on your life and record the challenging experiences you've encountered. You can go and do this walking somewhere or, privately in your bedroom. Just put yourself on video. You don't even need to look at the camera, and just take yourself very gently back through your life. Maybe the last year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever you feel comfortable with, and just talk to yourself out loud about those experiences. As you're finding yourself chatting away or writing down your world, think about how much of that has resulted in you dumbing down your emotions. Setting time aside regularly to journal, absolutely essential. You are worth this time. Give yourself this as part of allowing yourself the chance to improve your emotional regulation. The way you handle the harder feelings can all be explored journaling. And you're going to know this, journaling will increase your self-awareness as well. And giving yourself time to write or talk about your feelings you've had, and allocating the sources of these feelings will act as a fantastic tool for your personal growth. I often find it's the thought of doing something we become scared of rather than the actual doing something part of the process. So allow just one feeling you expect you're trying to avoid, allow it to come up, name it, and see how it feels. So if you're scared of feeling vulnerable, say the feeling to yourself. Just say it out loud. I am scared of feeling vulnerable. Ask yourself, just check in. How bad does that feel? If it's really, really bad, just make a note of it and leave it there for now. That's fine. This is a process. If you can get that feeling down, however, try and place it to a time in your life. Who made you feel like this? Or how did this feeling start for you? If you can locate a person, how would you feel giving back this feeling to them, to the person it belongs to? Not directly, because that might not be a thing. That might not be something you can make happen. You might not want it to happen. That person might not be around anymore. But you can try this. Write the person a letter telling them exactly how you're feeling. Don't panic. You don't need to send the letter. Take the time you deserve to craft that letter. So be real and be honest. No one's going to see this, only you. You can just rip it up once it's done if you want, or burn it, shred it, break it up into 1,000 pieces and blow it out in the air. Put it in the sea. You can do anything with it. The power of this exercise is you have visually got rid of the feeling. So when the letter goes, your brain will make a note of it. And the next time you have that memory or that thought, your brain will gently remind you that the feeling has gone back to its original owner. Try this too. Get yourself some stones or some pebbles or maybe some little pieces of paper. That will work too. And write on each of these the feelings you no longer want to be numb to or are afraid of feeling. Keep the pebbles or the pieces of paper, whatever you've used, in a jar, just somewhere in your room, somewhere out of sight, but not in your face. So even by doing this part of the activity, you've moved your feelings out of you into something you can see. Now, glance at them casually, just with little thought, and do this until you feel more comfortable with them being outside of you in a place you can see rather than inside of you. And when you can, and if you can, task yourself to take out one of the pebbles or the piece of paper, look at it and say that feeling out loud, and then just simply pop that back in the jar. Do this at your own pace until you have gone through all of the pebbles or all of those pieces of paper. If this feels comfortable, we can now move on to the next stage. So take your pebble or your paper and sit with the feeling inside of you just for a few moments. So if it's anxiety, for example, allow it to come up for as long as you feel comfortable. If it feels a little too sharp, put the pebble back or the paper and say goodbye to the feeling. This is tricky if the feeling stays and you can't shake it off when you've put that pebble back in the jar. So a little suggestion from me, make sure you have something to distract yourself here to allow the feeling to leave. Breathing techniques, a song to play, a TV show, message somebody, ring somebody, TikTok, food, whatever you feel comfortable with. But if that feeling stays around a little bit too much, make sure you've got something to do to ease it. Or repeat the step again. Take out the pebble, and when you've said the word and you felt the word, for example, anxiety, pop it back and say goodbye. The aim is to eventually feel so comfortable with your feelings they no longer hurt you as much. You've exposed yourself to them gradually and you are in full control. I know when I did this with my therapist, I eventually got so used to seeing them and not feeling them, I did eventually throw them all in the sea and say a final goodbye to them that way, which felt amazing. I think I can remember just sitting there watching the tide, taking them in, taking them out. Don't get me wrong, those feelings, they still visit me, of course they do, but so does that memory. So when I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, whatever that may be, I remind myself gently, take myself back to that moment. I let those emotions go. I gave myself permission to put them somewhere. I can't stress this enough. We feel emotions inside of us, and that's what hurts. If we can bring out those emotions, and I'm giving you some suggestions here to pop them onto a piece of paper or onto a pebble, they are outside of us. We observe them. This in itself will give you a different experience of that emotion. I am hoping by trying these techniques you're inviting a dialogue with yourself where you are inviting back in the emotions you are not able to feel. Go at your own pace and, as always, be kind to yourself. It wouldn't have taken you 5 minutes to be emotionally numb, so it's not going to take you 5 minutes to release the emotional tension you're feeling. You're in safe mode. You need to find an alternative safe mode to do this work on your own. Your numbness is caused by medication or substance misuse. These techniques might be harder for you to do. Exercise is always going to be helpful now. Moving your body in any way you choose will allow you to cope better with any form of emotional numbness. Remember, the numbness is coming from inside, and our bodies, we can move from the outside. Also, connecting to others is going to be a guaranteed winner. I'm going to share something here, and I'm not making this up. Did you know that a hug from a person you love and trust has the capacity to help you as much as an antidepressant tablet can? I'm really not making this up. Hugs are a natural antidepressant, carrying with them such biological power. Finish this podcast in a few moments and go and find one for yourself, or give one, up to you. I am all too aware, though, of how hard it can be to ask for help with drink and drug use. But if you are able to do that, if that's what you need, please think about doing it. Take those first steps, which are always the hardest, to getting back your control and asking for help. You have got your whole life ahead of you here, and so much more you need to do. If drink or drugs are holding you back in any way, make a choice for your future self and do reach out. Thank you for taking the time to join me today, episode 4 on my podcast for young people, We Are All Fine, as we started a conversation about how suppressing your emotions for a long period of time can lead to an emotional numbness. Even though it's painful, embracing your emotions is paramount to building your emotional resilience and help you manage those difficult feelings we all get in all stages of our lives. Your body may be in safe mode, but keeping it there will do more harm than good, and we really want you to feel, not just function. Therapy can help you identify and challenge the negative thought patterns that are feeding your emotional numbness. If you can reframe these thoughts with the therapist, you can gradually re-engage with your emotions in a controlled and safe manner. The therapist will go at your own pace. There'll be no pressure, and everything you're experiencing will be handled with great care and respect. If you have liked what you've heard today, please do tell others and share this episode. And if you love what you've heard, tell me. I'd love your feedback. And if you want to carry on our conversations outside of this podcast, come and find me and We Are All Fine on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube and Facebook. Just before you finish this podcast, hang on, I'm going to be introducing 2 new segments to the show from next week. On one of them, I need your input. It's called A Question for a Counsellor, and I need you to become involved. If you have a question that you think I could answer, please email me at HeidiWeAreAllFine@gmail.com. Again, HeidiWeAreAllFine@gmail.com, and I could be answering your question in the next episode. And look out also for another little segment I'm going to introduce called Therapy Thoughts. Next week, if you want to know more about why you might not trust people or trust your own thoughts and feelings, episode 5 is going to help you. You know why trust is such an important part of life and how, with my help, you need to learn to trust yourself first before you can trust anybody else. It really is possible to heal the hurt from others if you trust your own judgments first. We are all flawed, insecure, nervous and emotional, but always remember this: be yourself, you're no one else. Until next time, take care. Finally, some important takeaways. The podcast is for informational use only and should not be used as a substitution for professional advice or for any personal diagnosis. These opinions are personal and I do not guarantee the accuracy of such opinions or information. I am not intending to create a counselling relationship with you, and you should always consult a qualified mental health professional with any concerns.